Hello and welcome to this environmental special, Cleaning Up the Mess. This is CNC3. I'm Ira Mathur. Since we began this series, our country has been grappling with environmentally related disasters. The floods killed one man and destroyed everything belonging to some 500 families throughout the country. Businesses were shut down. Petrotrin was shut down. We saw that ODPM, our disaster management agency, had such a weak initial response that local government agencies had to take over. In last Sunday's Guardian, on the front page, we saw that our biggest sewage treatment plant, built 10 years ago, is not functioning, dumping waste from Port of Spain and its environs into the Caroni swamp. Our reporter said there was a foul stench emanating from the plant, posing a serious health hazard on the environment and wildlife. Currently, all our waste goes into our overflowing landfill sites at Beetham, Forest Park, Arima and in Tobago, Studley Park. The landfill sites are filled to capacity despite the continued bulldozing of waste. In last week's show, we also heard from the Ministry of Health that dengue has reached epidemic proportions in Trinidad and Tobago, now with over 1,000 people affected, 3 dead, 2 yet unconfirmed. Spraying doesn't seem to be working, neither is the public education program. Dengue cases are rising by the day. Every month, some 50 million plastic bottles find their way into our dumps and 10 million glass bottles. The beverage bill that could deal with this has been gathering dust for 10 years. We have no waste management laws, or very few. The litter laws are unenforced. Today, to tell us some of government's plans related to local government, I'm very happy to welcome our guest, Mr. Chandresh Sharma, the Minister of Local Government, who with some of the other line ministers was very active in bringing relief to the population during the recent flooding. Welcome, sir.
Thank you very much, and you're absolutely correct. We have found ourselves in a country that has failed, having had a past government spending close to $300 billion and very little to show for it. And while the laws are there, a number of them has not been enforced. Environment concerns every citizen in any part of the world. In fact, in today's global community, the biggest challenge we have is the management of the environment. And more state agencies are agreeing that every citizen must get involved. Since the election of Honorable Prime Minister Kamla Persad Bissessar, you would recall immediately upon entering office, the floods came and she immediately took to the streets. And soon after, we started this Clean and Beautify program with some focus on the water courses. And this led to, for the first time in many, many years, no flooding. And then the heavy rains came again. And in a short period of time, only so much work could have been done. And we found ourselves with many, many areas flooded. What was very interesting, however, and when you look at the global readiness of communities to respond to floods, I think Trinidad and Tobago set an example. Because within 72 hours, I recall the instructions of the Prime Minister, was that every affected citizen must be attended to. They must obtain dry bedding, they must get a hot meal, and we must start the process of returning them to their homes in a safer manner. And within 72 hours, we were very fortunate with the assistance of the fire services, the police, the defense force, NGOs, CBOs, faith-based organizations, and private individuals, including contractors. We were able to maintain that mandate of treating with every citizen. But the work has to continue. Certainly, drainage all over the world has a global approach in that drainage is attended to every 7 years. In Trinidad and Tobago, the past administration didn't see it fit. One has to ask the question, where has all this money been spent?
We had the head of drainage here as well as the head of the forestry division here, and they were saying that our drainage is 40 years old in Trinidad and Tobago, and that's a huge part of the problem. Is that the case?
Well, they are correct, except that when you had a government in the last 7 or 8 years spending $300 billion, because you want to be challenged if your drainage is X number of years old, and you don't spend money, it's okay. But when you have spent large sums of money, billions of dollars, and you have not solved the problem or not attended the problem in any meaningful way, it begs the question, where has the money gone? But that is now the past. The Prime Minister has given instructions that we are not to find the blame, we now to find the solution. And you'd recall, I think the newspapers of last week indicated we had started that project with a $30 million drainage program. We also indicated that we are going to engage the services of a top drainage expert to make sure that we don't find ourselves where we found ourselves recently. And that program continues, by the way. With the new budget, I'm sure there'll be added monies available. But more than that, we are now engaging all the citizens involved. It is no longer the responsibility only of the government, because what we have found is that within the committee there's institutional memory of what has to take place. In addition to that, also the public education program has to take place, in that there are some citizens sometimes block water courses, or sometimes in the areas in which they live, you would find a drain that has a deposit water somewhere, moving from 4 feet to 3 feet with a cylinder 2 feet in front of somebody's home, moving along back to 2 feet again and moving to 3 feet. That system cannot work. It must be uniform. And I think we have a commitment in partnership with the national community to deal with it in the correct way.
What about the role of local government in dealing with flooding? A lot of the water courses are blocked. Shouldn't drainage be doing a little bit more to clean up the mess in our water courses?
But one would appreciate that the local government was prevented from doing work under the last administration. We had argued on numerous occasions that local government was not obtaining resources required, both financial and human. All of our corporations are undermanned by as much as 50%, and we hope to correct that very soon. Only less than a month ago, we had an election in the country where 134 local government practitioners were elected. And the day after, within 24 hours, I met with them at the San Fernando City Hall, where we started the process. As we speak now, there are training programs preparing local government practitioners to hit the streets, to hit the roads. And certainly with the budget that was announced yesterday, certainly funding will come. Because what you need funding, you need human resources, and you also need coordination with the other agencies.
So you think by next year, this time, we won't have the kind of flooding problem that we had this year?
I'm very certain that it will be a lot less. A lot less.
Well, we do need to take a short break. As you watch, I want to remind you to send in your comments and suggestions to cleaningupthemess@guardian.co.tt. This is an environmental special on CNC3. We'll be right back. Don't go away. Welcome back to this environmental series on CNC3. My guest today is Minister of Local Government, Mr. Chandresh Sharma. But before we get to the interview, let's look at some of the images of the mess that this country has been facing.